Hello, friends. It's Caitlin and Shanika with Get Checkered. Get Checkered is part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown and community supported. And if you're watching us on YouTube right now, you'll see that I am recording again from a bed. And Caitlin is also, it's late. It is
Yeah,
almost
we're
11
we're
p.m.
recording this at what, 10:47 p.m.
Yeah. You just got in from up north. How was your trip?
I did. It was a really good trip. Um, but yeah, we had a bit of a delay on the flights. We were actually stuck in Edmonton just at the terminal for an additional hour and a half, which definitely sucked. But it is what it is. But weather was so good, Shanika. Like
Really?
amazing. It wasn't as warm as Calgary. I hear Calgary's been pretty warm actually. Maybe a snowstorm, but pretty warm. Um,
Two snowstorms, but okay.
too okay. The Uber guy was telling me it was like plus 18 today.
Yeah, it's
So
insane weather here.
the north was not that warm, but it got up to like +4, +5. And like sun was beaming, not a cloud in the sky. And it was like too nice that the ice road was starting to thaw. They
The
put out the
ice road was starting to
48
thaw.
hour stoppage on the road when we were out at the camp. So we kind of hustled out there the next day. When you drive it, you're like, this is fine. There's one section that's flooded over, but if you think about it, it's just water spewing up, but the thickness of the ice is still what it needs to be. So it could have lasted longer. We could have spent more time at the camp, but whatever, it's fine. I just read my book literally the whole week. My books. I was telling Shanika I started reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. So if anyone listening knows about that, I've been literally nose deep in those for the past week. Couldn't get my head out of there. Yeah, that's been my week. It was very relaxing, very
That's
nice. Great
good.
weather.
I'm good. I'm glad for
How's your
you
week
because
been, Shani?
it's been chaos, as you kind of alluded to. We had two snowstorms here, but just like very inconvenient. We had one on Tuesday, and I was like, oh, okay, like it's snowing a little bit, but it's Calgary, so whatever. I was working remote all day and then had to go into the office in the afternoon just for like an event thing that we do. And I was like, yeah, I'll leave an hour early to make up for the snow. Like, I'll be fine. No, they ended up closing. Caitlin will know this, and if you're from Calgary, you'll know this too, but Shaganappi and Country Hills because of the amount of accidents. So it took me like 45 minutes to just like turn around, basically. Um, that's how bad it was. And for the my parents were in Los Angeles last week, which was super great. But that meant that I had to shovel. And the snow was so wet and like heavy. Oh
Oh,
my gosh,
you
it was a
got a good
nightmare.
workout in then, hey?
And then I was like, okay, perfect. It started to, melt away right away because it's Calgary. And I know that we talk about weather, like weather's considered small talk, but when you're from here, no, weather's not small talk. It is actually just psychotic how different the weather can be from day to day. So yeah, then it was super sunny the next few days, like nothing happened. The snow started melting right away. And then we got hit with another snowstorm. Yeah, another one. And was it Thursday morning or Friday morning? I can't even remember. I was remote again, and then I was dropping my cousin off at home, and there was such a bad accident that I actually had to call 911 because like that's how bad it was. There were so many accidents again. And I was like,
Well, because
and then by the
people
afternoon,
probably
it
started
was
getting
gone.
summer tires on, right?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, by the afternoon, Caitlin, all of it was like starting to melt again. And I'm like,
That's driving
this
from
is
the
too
airport. There's like no snow on the side of the roads.
I know. And even when I was picking up my parents in the airport, I was like, trust me, there was a lot of snow. They're like, ah. I'm like, no, there was. Like, it was quite high, definitely a couple feet. We got, I think it was 30 centimeters in less than like 24 hours the first time. So, yeah, it was not great. So I did a lot of working from home, which was great.
Did you go out to the mountains? Should have if
No,
they got that much snow. If we got that much snow, how much snow did they get?
I know. I was thinking about that actually. So I think I'm officially becoming like a mountain girly. The fact that I was like, oh, I wonder if this snow in the mountains would be good right now. But I was like, you know what? Can't even think about that because I can't even drive out there because I can't drive.
There. Safety first. Yes.
Yeah. And speaking of safety, folks, this is a PSA. If your car, let's say you swap to Summers and you get one of these Calgary snowfalls and your car is in the middle of an intersection and on like a downhill kind of incline situation, thing number one is, turn on your hazards and do not run across the street like back and forth when it's blizzarding because like people can't see you. This is why I called 911. And the second thing is if your car starts rolling downhill because it has no like grip, don't try to stop it with your like own self. This crazy man tried to like stop his car from sliding when he was like down. It was just insane. I was like, what are you doing? Just let your car like hit whatever it's gonna hit. Like, don't you try to stop it with your two hands.
That's so
Like,
bad.
it was so bad.
Oh
Oh
my.
God. But that was my week. Look at your kitties.
You can barely see them. I got the blur effect on. They're very playful. That is wild.
Yeah. So folks, please just don't do that. That was
There's just so many
I
things
just
to do before it comes to that point.
I know so many things. And I'm like, oh God. And we were also on the phone with emergency. So they sent over a fire truck, which is always like
Mm-hmm.
the firefighters worked a ton, I would say, over the last few days. But it was, I think, probably for the person on the emergency line, probably thought it was funny because I was like, yeah, I don't know. Because, first of all, I don't know what north, south, east, west, don't know what to tell you. But I was like, yeah, it's when you turn off of this exit and this exit. I'm like, is that helpful? And we were like chatting. She's like, yeah, I think so. I think there's like a fire truck coming. And then she hears me and my brother being like, oh my God, no, no, that's guy Ken. What is he doing? And it's because he's trying to stop his car. And she's like, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, everything's fine, except this man is crazy. It's absolutely insane. We got some other news while you were up north, and I texted you.
We did devastating, unimpressive, just piss off kind of news. But yes, we did, unfortunately. Um, Shanna could text me and I thought it was a joke, but she links the CBC article and the Formula E race in Vancouver this year has been canceled.
And we've had tickets for this, folks, since November. So
Like, what are you doing? The race is in like 2.5 months. Why are you pulling the plug now?
and in the statement they didn't really say why. So I'm just like,
No.
I don't know. I don't know what's happening there.
They're like, we'll let you
But
know in a few weeks, like all the ticket holders know in a few weeks how you can get your money back, etc. And I'm like, what the fuck, you guys? What happened? I really was looking forward to that.
I know that's what's so funny because I think everyone I talk to is like, well, aren't you going to go to a race? And like, honestly, Caitlin and I just wanted to go see what Formula E was going to be about. Like, we haven't even thought about going to like a Formula One race. Like, we were just hell bent on seeing Formula E just to see what it was like. And now we don't know what's happening. So, if anyone has the tea on why Formula E was canceled, I was also looking into it and it looks like
Mm-hmm.
it was canceled before when they tried to hold it
Hmm.
here, I think somewhere in Canada, like a few years ago. It's canceled then too. So if anyone knows why, we would like to know.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'll be sending emails, try and figure out, see if we can get some clout from the podcast account. But I don't know. It's just like, oh, you guys, if you're trying to grow the market, stunts like this don't help.
True. Yeah. Especially because we know that, at least with Formula One, when these cancellations happen, people just don't get their money back either. Right. So it's
I think
like,
30,000 tickets had already sold, which, I hear like Coda had what, hundreds of thousands
yeah.
of tickets sold or whatever. But this is Vancouver, okay? 30,000, still something.
Do you think it's because they had Nickelback headlining? Is this like the bad luck? Is this the curse that came upon them
Maybe.
because they asked Nickelback to join?
Unfortunately. Do I think they were the selling point for anyone? No.
No.
Hopefully not. But
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm like, should we talk shit about Nickelback? I mean, okay, so they're from Alberta, and
they are.
yeah, that's
To
that.
be honest, I've gone to like 2 Nickelback concerts too when I was younger.
I know. They were definitely on like a mixed CD or two. So, you know what? We'll give it up to Nickelback, but just maybe we'll also blame them for the cancellation.
Anyways, moving on to something, the race, Imola. A bit
Ugh.
more happier for us, I guess, in a way than a canceled Formula
Is
E
it
race.
though? Is it though? I mean, we'll get into the dirty deets, but I
Okay,
thought this today's race was boring.
it kind of was. I definitely did not get out of bed to watch it. So worth me getting out of bed. But regardless, we got some track facts because we didn't really do track facts. This was the first race we covered last year, Shani and I, with Get Checkers.
Was
So
it? Happy
it was.
1 year anniversary. Look at
Yep.
that.
Yep. And we did have our shit together, so it was all over the place. So now we know kind of what we want to cover and stuff. So track facts being one of them. And holy heckers, there's a lot of track facts for this one.
Oh, okay.
So did some research, a lot of it on Wikipedia, of course. So Imola is in the Emilia Romagna region of northern Italy. It's
Beautiful.
located in an area known as the Motor Valley. So that's where many prominent Italian car manufacturers are located. Factories, so like Ducati, I think
Oh
it's
my
probably
gosh.
Ducati, Lamborghini, it's stuff like that.
Now we have a place we
Um,
can go visit, Caitlin.
okay, so side tangent, I tried to get us to go there in my 4th year of undergrad because I was organizing the international trip for mechanical engineering. What better place to
Yeah.
go than this? Right, Italy. And then my co-chair brought up South Korea, and there was more buy-in to go to South Korea. No complaints about going to South Korea, but I'm just saying this was my idea to go to too. Anyways, end of side tangent. Imola is east of Bologna. Is that it? Bologna. Bologna. No. This is the largest city in that region. It's the 7th most populous.
It's below. Oh no.
This is Bologna is the 7th most populous. Oh no. This is what happens when we're too tired to do a podcast. So
This is
7th most populous
great.
city in Italy. Okay, but there's some good facts
Amazing.
about Bologna. It is known as the Fat, Red, and the Learned City, and that's due to
Okay.
its rich cuisine. There's red Spanish-tiled rooftops, and
Ooh,
for left-wing
beautiful.
politics, for the
Yes.
red, and then being home to the oldest university in the Western world, the
Oh,
University of Bologna. So Stefano, back to Imola though, because this is where we are. Stefano Domenicali, the former Ferrari team principal and the current CEO of F1 Group, was actually born there.
oh my gosh. Yeah. I forgot
Yep.
he was a team principal for Ferrari.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going through the list of all the notable people. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's an important one. Anyways.
Yeah.
In June 1984, the city of Imola was actually awarded the Medaglia d'Oro al Valor Militare, so the gold Purple Heart, for its role of the city in the Italian resistance movement. I thought this was really cool. They so the role of the city fighting against like Nazism and the fascist support from the Italian parties during World War II.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I'm like, yeah, you go
Cool.
Imola. um, sorry, I'm losing my voice at the same time and laughing too much at Bologna, but it's fine. So the circuit itself is called the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Idino Ferrari, also known as Imola Circuit. It is seen as the home of Scuderia Ferrari, and there's lots of tifosi there. Some straight facts about this circuit. It's an anti-clockwise circuit, 63 race laps. They're about 5K each. You have one DRS zone. Michael Schumacher holds the most victories at Imola with 7 times.
Holy.
The first race was held there in 1980. The tire facts, they went with the Pirelli middle range, so C2, C3, C4 this race. And Imola is one of Pirelli's 2 home races alongside Monza. It is an Italian brand. And pretty much all the characteristics for the tires, why they base the middle range. It's middle for all the parameters, but 2 out of 5, so less than average for traction and asphalt grip. So we didn't really see anyone. We had in the race, we saw Daniel Ricciardo was really the only one to go on to hards. Everyone else stayed with medium, if not went to softs. Because good enough. And then, so this track actually previously ran what was called the San Marino GP. That was between 1981 and 2006, as the Italian GP took place in Monza. So it's called the San Marino GP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, San Marino is actually an independent nation state. They said about 100 kilometers to the south of Imola. And so they called it that due to the proximity. But now it's, instead of San Marino, they call it the Emilia Romagna GP, which we know. And then it's kind of infamous in the way that back in 1994, there were some awful incidents. We do know that Ayrton Senna passed away in a crash during that race, as did Roland Ratzenberger.
Right.
So Ratzenberger actually crashed first, and of course, people got spooked. There was apparently the head of the F1 on-track medical team, Sid Watkins, tried to persuade Senna not to race, but Senna replied with, "There are certain things over which we have no control. I cannot quit. I have to go on." And there were like other stuff I read, like Senna had an Austrian flag in his car that he wanted to wave after Roland passed away.
Oh my God.
Right? So, and then actually there were other incidents as well that weren't fatal, but driver Rubens Barrichello, he hit a wall in quali at 95G. Yeah. And then there were several mechanics and spectators injured. It's the first race, this 1994 Imola race, that a driver has passed since 1982 Canadian GP, when Riccardo Paletti passed, and the first time since 2 drivers passed in a race since 1960, so over 30 years before. And that was Chris Bristow and Alan Stacey.
Holy shit.
So in the wake of this race, it shocked the whole community and really heightened F1 safety standards. So they reformed the GP Drivers Association the day after Ratzenberger's death. And they actually changed many of the track layouts and the car design. So in place since 1981, the layout, it wasn't used again for the Formula One race. The circuit was heavily modified following that race, including that change at the Temerello corner where Ayrton passed and crashed. Numerous safety regulations added to F1, and new circuits now incorporate, for the most part, large runoff areas before hitting barriers.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we've seen every sort of movie documentary that's about Ayrton Senna, but I think because the seasons are so onerous, like they're so long, that you just like forget sometimes like what's actually going on at these tracks and the history that exists within them. So I'm glad they made the changes that they made, but like holy crap, that's
definitely
scary.
I think it, like, I don't know, it just must be so, if you think about it too much, I think it would really affect you as a racer currently. But yeah, like it's a Tifosi home staple right now, so it'll always be there, I think, probably.
Yeah.
There's a Ayrton Senna statue, I believe, there.
Yeah, there is.
So yeah, that's a short snippet about the Imola circuit, a bit about the city itself, its history. And yeah. But we're gonna get into quali and the race day for this 2022 season after a quick ad break. So this episode of Get Checkered is brought to you by ATB. Looking for a way to give back? ATB Cares makes it easy for all Albertans to support the causes they care about. Donate to your favorite charity through ATB Cares, and ATB will match 20% of every dollar donated to eligible Albertan charities. To learn more and to donate, visit atbcares.com.
All right. So talking about qualifying. Okay, I've already alluded to this, folks. I was like not very Imola just like wasn't it for me this year. So it was rainy, and with that, Carlos, which oh my gosh, Caitlin, I feel like I'm worried about him. I am, and I know we'll
We,
talk about it more.
we part of weekly updates. He just got contract extension to
Extended,
2024
which is
right before
exciting.
this happened.
I know, and I'm like, okay, this is so great. Like he should come out there and show his best, and then he crashes. But some of the other things that stood out to me was that Hamilton and Russell were eliminated in Q2. Ugh. Um, and the final results were Max in first, followed by Charles, then Lando. What did they do to
Hmm.
the McLaren since
Hmm.
Australia? Showing some pace here. Alonso, K Meg, Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez, Valtteri, Vettel, Carlos Sainz had to settle for 10th after that accident. Georgie, Mick Schumacher, Hamilton in 13th, Guan Yu Zhou, Stroll, Sonoda, Gasly, kind of low for the AlphaTauris, I'm going to be honest. Latifi, Esteban Ocon, and then Albon. But what I thought was interesting is that they did quali and then the sprint race, and there was some sort of change in the rules. So with the new revised rules, the person that's in first place, the pole sitter, aka Max, will be the pole sitter regardless of the sprint race and the results there. So uh, as soon as he snagged that P1 for quali, it was like pretty much done deal for him versus for everyone else. They could shift around and end up somewhere else. And speaking of that, the sprint races. So this was a sprint race. There was a sprint race, and this is one of the few ones of this season. And I kind of alluded to it, but Max did come in first. He actually didn't get the best start. It was Charles that came out super strong, but then was overtaken in the last little bit by Max. So then our grid ended up looking like what it always looks like, right? So Max followed by Charles, Perez, Sainz. Again, the McLarens, they were P5, P6, which after lest
Interesting.
we forget the first race where we were like, why are they like P17?
Yes.
Like, what is happening here? So doing really, really well. I think what is I suppose good is Sebastian Vettel in P13. We know how difficult the races have been for him recently, and Lance Stroll. So Aston Martin actually like showing up a little bit, but pain for Lewis Hamilton, man. Like he qualified in the sprint race in P14, which is 3 slots behind his teammate George Russell. I was also really, really, really excited for Mick Schumacher, P10, P
That's his
freaking
highest
10.
ever, right?
That's his highest ever. It's his freaking highest ever. And I was excited to see what he could do. But again, freaking Gasly, yo. Why is he P17? I don't know what's going on. Anyways, yeah, so
Interesting. Yeah, and
that's
Sonoda's 12.
I know. I don't know what's going on. And
Hmm.
honestly, once we talk about race day, like Yuki had a really great drive. So I don't know if there's something up with the car. But yeah, there wasn't that much to talk about, to be honest, folks. Like it was rainy, there was an accident, there's French qualies, and it was just good to see some of the cars like seem to be a little bit better. So, like I said, the McLarens. So we're gonna like zoom right into the that was supposed to be a joke. Do you all have you seen that meme, the zoom with the Caitlin, you've seen this, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The zoom. What's it? Oh my god. Okay.
Is that it,
But we'll
Imola?
talk about I don't know. I don't think it was Imola, but we'll talk about the race day right after this ad break. This episode is brought to you by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider in Alberta, offering internet, electricity, and natural gas with low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities. In Alberta, you get to choose who to buy your internet, electricity, and natural gas from. If you switch providers, nothing changes but the delivery of these utilities to your home or business. If you have an existing contract, you're going to want to find out the terms before leaving. That is very important. And if you don't, then it's easier for you to sign up for Park Power. You, as a consumer, have the choice of who you pay your bills to. So why not choose your friendly local utilities provider? Learn more at parkpower.ca. All right, race day. And I'm still going to continue to be better. Caitlin, I thought it was so boring. I thought it was so boring. But the most
I
exciting.
I found excitement through cheering for my grid rival team. That's how I found enjoyment through that race.
That's like a good way of framing it.
And
So
I was shook at the end. The end was a surprise. You have to admit that.
yeah, I completely agree. And actually the beginning too. So lap one, everyone's on inters because it's raining. And I'm like, okay, we're about to see some excitement because it's raining. And we got some excitement, which was like really shit to be honest. So pretty much into turn one, Carlos squeezes. Well, he's out front, but I think it just was like a little bit too tight for Danny Rick.
Mm-hmm.
And Danny had nowhere to go and ends up hitting Charles. And the way that he swung Carlos, sorry, he ends up hitting Carlos. And the way that he swung into the gravel pit, like there was no way for him to move. So, as soon as those cars get like, it's not beached, but it is kind of like beached, then they can't, like, it's race over. So
Yeah.
after the accident in qualifying,
Can you
now
believe it?
this.
Oh no, Clover.
Girl,
Oh,
I
neat
think she
girl.
missed you. That's
Oh,
so sweet.
definitely. Um, yeah.
Oh,
Can you believe it? Like Carlos DNFing again.
again, I know, and he's the one that's so steady. So I'm just like really concerned about his confidence. We'll talk
Mm-hmm.
a bit more about it, but I'm really nervous for him. So, like I said, it just wasn't his week, and I was thinking like, what are they gonna call it? What are they gonna call it? And the stewards just called it a racing incident, which, like, yeah, I just don't think like Danny could have gone anywhere. So it's just like it is what it is. But then with Danny also getting bumped, he kind of like was screwed for the rest of the race. So he ended up just playing a guinea pig for Lando, and he wasn't able to move up that much. It was more like they were just trying stuff. Um, on the post race interviews, Carlos was like, I don't, how he's like always hard on himself.
Mm-hmm.
He was very hard on himself as usual, but he also just looks sad because I think it's like it's Imola, the Tifosi's there. Ferrari was supposed to show up and they kind of sort of didn't. And he didn't even get the opportunity, right? Like he just signed that contract and probably wanted to show his best. It just didn't happen. So I don't know. I just hope the next race he does really well because I think he really needs that confidence boost right
Mm-hmm.
now. And
Mm-hmm.
because I think also with him just having these mistakes and DNFs, and it's not to say that Charles was mistakeless because obviously he had a very big one, but right now he is falling into that second driver
Oh
seat
yeah.
like more and more. And I'm like, no, Carlos, like you need to be competitive.
And it's hard
Um,
because it's like he's going to get himself into a mindset, and you have to dig yourself out of a bad mindset. That takes a
yeah,
lot of power to do. So,
yeah. Sometimes it's just like easy to be miserable.
yeah.
Uh, so kind of to, I guess, continue on this incident, Daniel in the post-race interviews was talking and he basically was like, yeah, like I hope the team got a lot of data with like everything they were trying. But kind of chalked it up to like, look, like that's what his race was, right? It was just to play a guinea pig, see what works, see what doesn't, see what they need to fix, see if going on to slicks will make sense or not, or should they be on hards, whatever. And there also, I saw this floating on Twitter, was a photo of Daniel in like the Ferrari zone. And it looks like he was looking for Carlos to have a chat. And
Yeah,
like,
I heard you wanted to apologize to him.
yeah.
So,
And I was like, we love when the boys are friends because it's so great. But lap one just wasn't over with that. So I think like this completely, Caitlin, I don't know if you saw it on your end, but it
no,
completely like
no.
went over my head. I just didn't even see this at all. Because obviously we're seeing Danny and Carlos and just heartbreak because we know it's Imola. So that's all we're paying attention to. None of us see like what's going on behind them. But when Danny and Carlos had their little like incident, Mick and Alonso kind of bumped each other. And I think for me at least, like ESPN, TSN, Sky News, whatever, they just like didn't really show it. So I just didn't think anything of it until we see like Alonso like slowly drop down their ranks. And I was like, what's going on? And then they show the side of his car and
It's
there's just a
missing.
giant hole in his
Mm-hmm.
side pod.
just just it flew, and they try, like, they go slowly back in time to try and diagnose what happened, and they're like, oh, here's where it just flies off in the middle of the track. You're like, why is his car falling apart in the middle of the track? And then they go back and then they show you that, yeah, Mick slid in the back of his car, actually went into the side of Alonso, and so the residual after a bit more driving was what we saw. The car just literally lost half his siding. It was wild to
Just
see.
a hole. And I was like, okay, maybe he'll try and drive this. But then, it's so dangerous for the engine. So of course they ended up retiring him. So this is another DNF for freaking Alonso. Um, yeah, just not the best of luck. It doesn't matter how well you drive because there's also other drivers you gotta like who could totally just shift the narrative for you.
Really.
This also was shit for Schumacher though. So, like we said, he qualified in P10, his best ever. And then after this incident, he just had like a really hard time on the track. So he was sliding around a lot every time they showed him. He like spun a few times, didn't spin, sorry. He like kind of did like half spins, was able to save himself and continue racing, but it just like I feel like it maybe like shook his confidence a little bit, or um maybe it was the track being wet. I don't know, but it probably wasn't what he wanted to do with the P10, where he ended up
Yeah.
finishing. So that
And
was like
he
shit.
was he was on my grid rival team. I was definitely following what was happening with him. And he was battling, I know he was at the back of the field, but he was battling up to Nicholas Latifi, up to like P15 or something. And it was just a bad call. Like he did a bad
Mhm.
pass and ended up, did he turn again? He might have.
Yeah,
He ended up in dead
yeah,
last pretty much after that.
yeah. He was also
Unfortunate.
on my grid rival team.
Of the two Haas, we know which one should have been on our team this day.
Time around, it would have been great to have K Mag. It's fine. Um, so we talked about some of the lowlights from lap one, but some of the highlights were George and Lando both just capitalized from people's mistakes,
Mhm.
which was great. George moved up from P11 to like the P5, P6 range. And then Lando snagged a podium position. So right at the jump, right at the start, just with everyone moving around, these tires, the rain, Charles didn't get the best start. So Lando for a little bit for 8 laps at the time, which we also know this was different towards the end. But for 8 laps, he was sitting in that P3 position, and then the Ferrari came and took it back for nearly the rest of the race. But
Yeah,
it
that
was
was
good
a
to see.
really bad start from Charles, wasn't it?
It was really, really bad. It was really bad. I don't know what happened. Like it was a great start for the Red Bulls. Like the Red Bulls were fast
Mm-hmm.
and so great for Charles.
Didn't
And
look
also
like they
took
had reliability issues this race.
they came back, baby.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was just the swapping to slicks. So they were on inters for a very long time, like a painfully long time. And as I mentioned, when Danny was the first one to go on slicks, and he was the guinea pig. So as soon as he started knocking out some green sectors, that's when everyone started pitting, which was like kind of nerve-wracking because Lewis just totally got fucked. Did you see that? They
Well,
call him in.
I have my
He gets
opinion
his
on
tires
Lewis and
loud.
this transition, but you go first.
So they call him in. Well, he first says like he's not ready to go on. Um, but then everyone starts pitting, and I'm like, I feel like they should have been a bit more aggressive with his strategy because he was just, P14, like baby, like what are you gonna do? Like anything really.
True.
So he goes in and then the pit stop is fine. It's not like the quickest they've ever done. But then as he's leaving, there's a super unsafe release from Alpine. and he just ends
Mm-hmm.
up completely screwed. And what I mean by that is when they get back on the track, Lewis had done some work, he'd moved up the grid. But when they get back on the track, somehow Esteban Ocon's jumped like 4 or 5 places, and Lewis is in the back of this DRS train, which like he's in for the rest of the race. So it was that was shit to see. And then another driver that kind of was impacted with the slow pit stop, and this is just like my assumption, but Valtteri with Alpha Romeo, they had a tough time with the wheel, and I was getting flashbacks to
Yeah,
Monaco.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
Horrific. I'm
no,
like,
this
why aren't they stopping his time? Is he really still in the pit?
I'm like, why aren't they getting it off? Why aren't they getting it off? Okay, they did get it off. But I do think that had they been quicker, didn't have issues with the tire, I think he could have finished ahead of George. Just because like it ate so much time that he was back there. And towards the
11
end,
seconds
Valtteri,
hit, almost
yeah.
12.
So, and especially like towards the end of the race, Valtteri was all on like all over George. So I think that that time would have really saved him.
Let us
The one thing
also
that
talk about the talking about Valtteri versus George. Did you have flashbacks when they were going around that one corner to last year?
yeah.
No, like here
And
we are
also
again.
and because last time in Imola it was like raining too.
Yeah,
And I'm just like so glad that no one
they
hit each
played
other. There was
nicer this
no,
year.
yeah, there was no like physical assault onto someone's helmet. Just it was not great. But you said that you had like a thought on Lewis's pit
Oh,
stop.
I almost thought he was going a little bit too conservative, right? And like you were
Yeah,
talking about it,
I
but
agree.
just my thoughts as I was watching it. He's saying, no, I from pretty much saying from my experience, I don't think this is dry enough
Yeah.
for me to change the slicks. At the same time, we're seeing Danny prove that they are good enough to change the slicks. So it's like, oh, Lewis, what?
But it's not risk.
Lewis,
I
is your just
know.
like sense off right now or something?
Maybe. And the thing is with like the British boys, especially the and Yuki, I would say. Um, so that's George, Lewis, Lando, and Yuki. They're solid in driving in the rain. Because it's like, where did they learn how to drive? You know what I mean? In
Mhm.
places with a lot of rain. So every time that the announcers, the commentators were talking about those 4 drivers, they're like, oh, they'll love racing in the rain. It's gonna be great for them in the rain. And then the rain never came. But Lewis, like you said, he just wasn't risky enough. And I think that was something that really hurt him.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, the reason why I think this race kind of sucked is that we had 34 laps without DRS out of
Yeah. Why?
63.
Why?
I have no idea. And if anyone knows, I know that the team principals can't contact the race director anymore, but if we can contact the race director and tell him like that can happen, because that's like, oh my God, to see
Yeah.
these drivers just like for over half the race not be able to pass each other using
Yeah.
DRS, like,
Yeah.
ugh. And there's only one zone too on the entire track. So it's like, oh my God. Anyways,
Like we were able to see some just pure power overtakes, which is always nice to
yeah.
see. But at the same time, we missed out on so much action
Yeah.
because of lack of DRS. I don't know. I thought that was weird. I was having
I
breakfast.
thought
I'm
so
not doing too
too,
much.
because the whole thing is they're trying to like, make it not be like a train. And then with them not enabling DRS earlier, it turned into just a giant train. Like it was a mess. I don't like that. I mean,
Ridiculous.
to contact who I need to contact because I don't like that. I did add a quick note for like adding insult to injury. So, um, Lewis does get lapped in this race by Max on lap 41, showing the pace. I would say it's not the pace of the Mercedes. It was just the fact that he was like stuck behind all of these cars. Because obviously George is in a Mercedes. He's like sitting P5. Like there's pace in the car. Just Lewis can't get past these people. So it just like made my heart hurt for him when he got shown the blue flag And like,
Yeah.
did you see Toto's face when he was showing the balloons?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, just pain. So felt for a guy there. And then I also think, I'm gonna give Max some credit here too. I think obviously last season there was just so much drama, and Sky News, they asked him like basically, like, this is not verbatim, but how does it feel to pass, lap Lewis Hamilton? And he was kind of like, the Mercedes is slow, like it has no impact on me. And I thought that was really mature, for him to be like, this like doesn't matter, like, I know you're trying to go for clickbait, like, we know the Mercedes is slow, like it's this is nothing new. So I did appreciate that. And then the final thing, I guess, to that surprised both you and I. Um, Charles made a big mistake.
Yeah.
So he was holding on to P3, and
Hmm.
then is like, I'm going to swap to softs because I'm going to go for fastest lap. And, we know that 1 point, we say it all the time, really, really matters. Especially last season, it was like that 1 point could be the difference between being a world championship and not.
Hmm.
Um, and on the softs, he was gaining super quickly on the Red Bulls. The Red Bulls also swapped to softs, both of them. And just as he's on the tail of Sergio Perez, on lap 54, Charles just completely loses control, uh, spins, but has enough control of his car that he's able to get back into the race in P9. So in the hunt for 1 point, one additional point, he lost how many points? Like 7 points, 6 points,
Mm. Yeah, that hurts.
right? So he ended up finishing in P6, and in the post race interview, he said that he was disappointed, but he also was like way more optimistic because he was like, honestly, like, I was sitting in P3, so he's in P6, so that it's not like a big loss versus being in P1 and losing all of that. But I think that the bigger uh win here for him is, since we're talking about last year, I don't know if you remember last year, but Yuki Tsunoda basically had the same thing happen to him. Like, it was like the exact same motion, the exact same turn, but because I think he was, a rookie, he ended up like destroying his car. So the fact that Charles controlled it, as a light tap into the barriers, is also a win, especially with this cost cap. So yeah. How did you feel? Charles is on my grid rival team, so to have him,
Me too. It was kind of devastating. I'm like, I've waited to get Charles on my team because he's been winning everything. And
yeah,
then this is the one race he makes his mistake. And they're
mhm,
human. They make mistakes, but damn. It it
right?
it hurt to see.
It's not great, people. This is not what we want.
But I mean, to be honest though, do you have
Yeah.
Boris on your team?
I do have Valtteri on my team.
Yeah. Yeah. So the fact that like Valtteri's up in 5 and then Leclerc's in 6, I'm like, I can't even be that mad, to be honest. I still got like,
And Valtteri's been steady. I want to tell everyone that's like, oh my God, I just can't believe he's driving so well. Valtteri Bottas has always been a great driver, okay?
mhm.
You have to be great to be partnered with Lewis Hamilton. He just hasn't been able to shine on his own because he's been partnered with Lewis Hamilton. And now he's in a car that has a Ferrari engine, and he said right now he'd prefer to have a Ferrari engine instead of a Mercedes, and is doing quite well. So I know. The other exciting podium was Lando, who got a cheeky little P3. Our little boy was on the podium. In the interviews, he was being his like little cheeky little self, being like, "Yep, I got it." Like, he's like, "I saw the flags go up, and like, I wasn't hoping that someone got into an accident, but I was like a little curious."
He really is growing in his confidence, eh?
Yeah, and a little bit of his ego, which I think is fine. Our final result was the Red Bulls out on top at the 1-2, followed by Norris, then Russell in P4, worked his butt off, Valtteri in P5, Charles in P6, Yuki Tsunoda, who we didn't highlight very much, and frankly, they didn't show a lot on the broadcast, but he drove very well, P7. Sebastian Vettel, followed by Kevin Magnussen, then Lance Stroll. This is great too. Aston Martin getting the first points of the season, race 4.
Oh, really?
Yep, they're
Hmm.
in 8 and 10, so finally getting some points. Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly follow that. Lewis Hamilton in P13, P14 Esteban Ocon, then Guan Yu Zhou, Nicholas Latifi, Mick Schumacher, like I said, freaking P17, not great. Then dead last, Danny Ricciardo, who was just a guinea pig the whole time, and we got 2 DNFs. So when I
Let's
don't,
let's
Caitlin,
just
did you?
highlight the Gasly in 12 and Hamilton in 13, because Gasly held
I
Hamilton off.
know. So there's this joke like on Twitter, and maybe you've seen it too, Caitlin, that like Gasly is team Lewis Hamilton. Like he is Lewis Hamilton's biggest fan. And I was like, if he is truly a big fan right now, he would just let Lewis pass. Like, why is he doing this? Because yeah, he held him up. And even when they had DRS, I felt like the straight wasn't long enough. Like every time Simon's trying to pass someone, they would like be short like 1 or 2 car lengths. And I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, this was heartbreaking because I'm like, this is a boy that I like love, obviously, with a boy that I admire. And it's just not working out well for them. Oh God. I don't know, Caitlin, if they showed this on your broadcast, but after, everyone gets out of the cars, a celebration, whatever, they showed a cool down room cam thing.
Okay,
Did you?
okay, so yes, because I switched to TSN to
Yeah.
watch it afterwards.
Yeah.
And then it's already like WTF1 already put up a thing on their Instagram being like, this is back. Um, and I guess for Shanika and I, it's our first time seeing it. It was different. It was fun to
I'm
watch though.
Oh, you thought it was fun? I thought it
I
was so
freaking loved it. I was like, tell me more, tell me everything.
I just thought because there was no like clear indication what was happening, I was just like, oh, did like a camera person like leave a
Sneak
camera?
in.
Like, you know what I mean? Like they just forgot to edit something properly and like they weren't mic'd up very well, so you can't really hear everything. And I'm like, this is so weird. Okay. Like,
It's
that's
fine.
fine.
We got some good information from them, and to see how they react with each other, they have a good rapport between the three of them. So it's
Mhm.
very friendly. It's good.
Yes, it was very, very friendly. The standouts for me this race, other than like no DRS, kind of being boring, making me wonder why I woke up so early. My God. I woke up at like 6:30 for this, is Lewis. So in the post-race interview, it just like made me sad. So obviously we know George is doing really well, but Lewis hasn't been. He's been very all over the place. I would say George is like the new consistent king this year. Like honestly, like P5, P6, like he's chilling, he's doing well. Um Lewis said that he's out of the championship. He's like, I'm out of the championship for sure. And when he came in, Toto jumped on the radio and apologized to Lewis and said, the car's letting him down and the track position didn't help and all that kind of stuff. Uh Nico Rosberg, did you catch this interview, Caitlin? I was like
Mm-hmm.
so annoyed. I was on Twitter being
I
like,
was
I'm
like, of course, is Nico Rosberg doing this
it's
though?
almost like, bro, like this is the most biased person you have ever that has to like, I don't know. Anyways, but Nico tried to push buttons with George by telling, like, basically trying to get him to shit on Lewis, because as much as we say like, Lewis is struggling with the car, George is doing really well. Like maybe the car's slow, but the thing is, George is like getting it into that space, that sweet spot that seems to be like this big and is
Mm-hmm.
performing right. And George did such, I personally thought, just such a good job of like defending Lewis and also kind of putting Nico in his place a little bit. Um, he didn't fully sidestep the question, but I thought the way that he answered it was really smart. And I saw that and I was like, oh, this is like the future leader of this team. You know what I mean? There's none of the pettiness that we see. He was very like measured with his words and what he was saying. And he's like, was just so supportive of Lewis. And I think that's really good. But I also can understand that it's, if I'm Lewis Hamilton and with this team for like since he was 13 years old, he was signed to Mercedes. Um, to be in a position where the younger one's in and is doing well is probably not a good feeling. um, but we have to give credit where credit's due because with George being consistent, like he's the reason why Mercedes is still sitting third in the constructors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw that afterwards. Nico was like, "Well, that was a very diplomatic answer. It's not what I wanted to hear." And I'm like, "Nico, he said exactly what he was supposed to say, and you could have
Yeah,
wanted more, but you know what? George is keeping in good standing with everyone, and that's the best thing he could do." So,
exactly. And also, why shit on your teammate who you have so much to learn from, who you're literally gonna have to fly back with? Like, it's just like not worth it, you know?
but it's something I
Lewis
think
never,
Rosberg would have given into, right?
oh, 100%, because they did not have a good relationship. And it's like the one thing Toto said, he's like, I don't want to have the drivers be in a poor relationship. Valtteri and Lewis had a great relationship. And it seems like they're trying to build that with George. And the other thing was just the Red Bulls rebounding, obviously, from the multiple DNFs to like what they did today. I think it was a lonely drive for Max, like to be honest. As soon as he was out in front, he was just out in front.
But
But
then he
I
could do
wanted
all
to
the
highlight,
overtakes. He got to pass
yeah.
all his buddies on the overtakes.
But I wanted to highlight Checo. Checo from last year were really far behind Max in pace, like finishing P5, P6, winning everything really well. Like right behind his team where Red Bull needs him to be.
Mhm.
So I hope he gets signed for another year. I don't think they can find a better teammate. We have a TikTok and a reel. It's on both of our it's but it's Max has gone through. Like this is the first teammate that he has that's like as competitive as him. Like if something's like can pick up the slack, is really good at defending. So like if Max is in, then he Sergio's behind him. Like he doesn't have to worry about. I really hope there's a contract extension coming. I also wish that Christian fucking Horner would celebrate Sergio Perez more. That's all. I
Mhm.
really don't like that man.
Mhm.
But
I
that
do
was
think
the
I agree
race
with you.
day.
Hmm? I was going to just completely echo
You
your
agree with
thoughts
me
with
about
Checo. What?
that. I love Checo. I love Checo.
I think he will get, if he
Love him.
wants to, he'll get signed for another year. I think so.
And saying bye.
Okay, bye, friends. Stay checkered. Oh my god, Clover. Get off. Clover.